right, so I'm here with Charles Harrison. Charles, how long have you been a member of MASI?
Oh gosh, since 1970, 78, 79, somewhere in there.
Okay, how'd you find the club?
It was a search and asking around, asking pet stores about is there an organization around?
I guess going even further back, how'd you get into fish keeping?
It probably started somewhere after high school in 1961. First fish I got were a pair of Australies, gold Australies.
That was the first fish, was killifish?
Yeah, right, gold
Really?
Australies. And I had a big fish bowl, about a gallon-sized fish bowl, and I had it in a window with some elodea in it.
What's elodea?
It's a leafy stem plant.
Okay.
It does root. And part of my education came from finding the eggs of the killifish and putting them in a petri dish and watching them hatch out into little babies, little baby fish.
So, did you have a mentor or something? Because I would never have guessed to, one, keep live plants with my fish when I was first starting, or two, to have any idea what my fish were producing eggs.
No, I a lot of biology.
Were you a biology student or just a fan
Well, I
of it?
took biology when I was in high school, but I was mostly a student of chemistry. Most of my life's been based on things around chemistry, math, and physics. And of course, biology, you can't get away from those without having a lot of biology involved in it too. If you broaden out enough and understand some biological chemistry, you pretty well get yourself a general education in the sciences.
Yeah. I guess I also wanted to circle back. How'd you end up with killifish as the first fish? Because you usually hear about people going with guppies or platies or
They
something
were
like that.
exciting little fish. They were so bright, so shiny, and
Were they in a store?
fish with a flag. They had to be in a pet store,
No kidding.
and that was back in the early 60s, so
Wow.
there were pet stores around. There were some family-owned pet stores around,
Sure.
and this would have been in Fort Worth.
Wow. That's cool. I mean, most of the, you just don't see those fish at the stores that we have now. Even some of the nicer ones around here, there's very, very rarely killifish in those stores.
Yeah, they jump out of their tanks. They keep them too well lit. They bubble too much air through them, and they just cause too much agitation in the water. The fish don't like it, and if the killies don't like it,
They go looking for
leave.
something else, huh?
They'll leave. And if you notice, most of the tanks I've got killies in here,
Yeah.
there aren't any lids on them.
Yeah, as soon as you
They're not
mentioned
completely
the
lidded up.
jumping, I realized that I had not seen a single lid on any of your tanks.
Well, there are lids in here, and I lit up about half of the back sides of them. If you look at the tanks and behind me,
Yeah.
there's a lid back here.
Oh yeah, there sure is.
And
But you
this
got
one,
an
there's a
open
lid
spot
back
on the
here.
front.
There's nothing up here. They're happy enough in here that they're not going to leave, and that's the key. It's dark enough in here. Turn the lights off, sir. It's dark enough in here whenever the lights that I use, the people lights, are off, that the fish don't have that much. There's not that much going on. They can't see that much. Mostly it's their tank that they're in. Turn the light back on. So the people light makes a lot of difference for us, and it also makes a lot of difference for the fish. If you shine a lot of light on the fish, they're not going to like it. And it goes for most all of the fishes too, unless they're big, big lake fish. What I was most interested in then was, what do you feed the little fry? And I learned how to hatch out brine shrimp.
So where are you getting this information from? Because this is pre-internet. You weren't just hopping on Google and
Well, the
how
American
to.
Killifish Association was getting started back then.
All right.
And no, there wasn't any internet. And phone calls and letters and so on and so forth.
So you were writing to the AKA looking for information with them?
I would write letters. I also would receive their bulletins, and I signed up for the AKA and made sure that I was in communications with the people there. So I got to know the fish real well.
So you said that you had looked up, you got interested in what to feed the fry. What did you find?
Found out how to hatch out newly hatched brine shrimp. You had to make salt water, or you had to go find things out of ponds and streams,
So
Daphnia and things like that.
you kind of jumped right into the real deep end of the hobby. You were from the start. You were breeding fish and you were making your own live foods. Would you? And you said you didn't really have anyone. Was there someone in your life that was keeping fish, or was just you saw a pretty fish that I gotta have it and I'm gonna figure out how to keep it?
No, it's pretty much on my own.
Self-starter, huh?
Yeah, pretty much on my own back then.
And so, how did you end up going from the one killifish tank to when did you kind of catch the multiple tank syndrome?
Oh gosh, it had to be years after that, but during my bachelor's degree in Wichita Falls is when I first started breeding bettas. So I had
You need a lot of containers to breed bettas, don't you?
Yeah, one really does. We didn't have quite the strains now. The big comb-tail bettas weren't around then.
Sure.
The Cambodia bettas with the cream colors, blues and reds, were something that's very interesting to me. Kept some of those, and some of the rather plain betta splendens. But I did breed quite a few bettas, and I did sell them to pet stores in Wichita Falls.
Wow. You kind of grew in the hobby, just slowly acquired tank after tank? Oh.
Deborah.
It's all of us.
Oh, all of you.
How are you?
Well, I'm okay. Can I call you right back?
Not even.
Bye.
Whose birthday is that?
My great-grandson.
Oh. Well, happy
He
birthday to
must
him.
be 8. He must be 8 years old.
8 years old. So Charles, you said you were you started doing live foods from an early age. Would you like to show us how to do a few?
Oh yes, I would love to. I like to help out anybody, and getting live food cultures and so forth sometimes is a difficult thing to do, but there's got to be an aquarist around that's got growing these things for you, so look toward them.
Yep, your local hobbyist is a great source to find stuff that you can't find at pet stores.
Right.
All right, so Charles is going to show us how to do a couple of these food cultures, and we'll check out his fish room. All right, so Charles, you want to talk to us about some live foods? We got some brine shrimp coming up, right?
Right. Brine shrimp is a staple for me. It is for most killie breeders, and killifish have been my main fish for a long time. We can start off with what I start off with is a pound can from Brine Shrimp Direct, and water and salt. Again with brine shrimp, the brine shrimp eggs is from Brine Shrimp Direct.
Mm-hmm.
They're online.
You get good hatch rates with them?
Well, this is premium grade 90%.
Okay.
So I get far fewer eggs in my tanks, but that doesn't eliminate the eggs in the tanks.
Yep.
You can see
Yep.
all these tanks have got eggs in them. A lot of people will go with 80% or 85% if they're a little cheaper. These are from Brine Shrimp Direct right now. These are $50 a can. And I will take this, open it up after it's warmed up. It's no longer condensing. After it's warmed up, and I'll fill this bottle up and bring this bottle in here, and then I'll fill this bottle up with what's in there.
Okay, so you take about a week's worth of eggs
Right.
and keep them, you just store them warm and dry.
I can store them warm and dry and tight. Now put that into here, and now I've got an airtight closure. You put the plastic cap on this, and it's really not all that airtight.
Yeah.
This is. So I can keep it airtight when I take it out of the freezer and let it warm up. Put it back in the freezer, and you see it's still cold around where the eggs are.
Yeah.
So I'll put this back in the freezer where it belongs, and this back in the freezer also.
So that's how you keep them and store them. And then, so what's your, what's your formula?
Well, this process got started a long time ago. I took a couple of gallon jugs and I cut the bottom off of them.
Yeah, you sure did.
So these gallon jugs became my hatchers. I arbitrarily put a mark here,
All right.
just to guess them by golly, because I thought it was a nice place to stop. I put a mark here, and then I filled it up to water to here, and I poured that water into here, and I put another mark on that one there.
All right.
So both of them now hold the same amount of water.
Yeah.
And then I take a little one of these electronic balances, and I've tried all kinds of salts. What I'm using on the last couple of tries is water softener salt.
Water softener.
And the reason why I picked that is because it has less sand in it. It comes out probably about the same as the ice melting salt. It doesn't have any sand in it. And most of the ice melting salts that are available from the hardware stores and so forth have some sand in it.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
And when you take it and put it in here, then you don't know how much sand is, so you don't know how much salt you're actually putting in there.
I see.
So I've had to adjust things around. So I put about 50 grams in here and I bubbled it for several hours until it all dissolved, and I measured its density. Well, it's
So you're measuring the density here.
right. I used a hygrometer.
Now, what is this called again?
This is a marine hygrometer.
Marine hygrometer. All right.
It's
So it's
for
a tool
measuring.
for keeping saltwater fish. It's a salinity
Right.
measure.
It measures the salinity. Let's see here. Brine Shrimp Direct says it's supposed to be 1.018.
All right.
So 1.02. You just don't want it to have it quite as salty as sea salt, but you don't want it to have it like water either.
All right.
And this is from Brine Shrimp Direct. This is their instructions and so forth. So I arbitrarily filled it up here with water, and then I found out how much salt it would take to raise the salinity up to here,
Okay.
and I wrote it down. So it came out to be 75.
75 was the magic number.
Right. And then,
So once you figure that out the one time, then you're good to go, right?
right, I could tell people who come over to feed my fish what to mix the next batch of salt. So I put tap water in here to begin with, I filled it up to here, and now 73 grams of this salt gets me that density.
Huh. Perfect.
Now, so I can do this over and over and over. This is about 73 grams, filling it up to here. But again, the different crystals of salt are going to be different.
Yeah.
So you can't go by just the volume of this, well, you've got to go by the volume of this. And you really need to weigh it out to know
Yeah,
exactly
because
how much is
larger crystals will leave more air pockets between the
Right,
crystals,
yeah, it's
and
not, the volume is just not, it's not specific. You really need to have
use the measure. That makes a lot of sense.
some simple little gadget like this is really inexpensive, and it'll save you a lot of money, and it'll save you a lot of bad hatches and so forth. So the brine shrimp eggs, I buy them in bulk. I keep them frozen. I make sure whenever I thaw them out that they don't get wet from the condensate from the air. I never take out more than I can use in 5 or 6 days, and I put the rest of it back in the freezer so it'll keep. And I put it in a different container because I don't trust the plastic cap to be airtight. And it works better, so I don't have as many eggs hatching in here.
Yeah.
I have more eggs hatching in there. And whenever I'm through, tomorrow, this is pretty well sets my day. What time do I put these up? About 10 o'clock this morning. So 10 o'clock tomorrow, between 8 and 10, I'll disconnect this. The light down here not only heats the tank, but also draws the shrimp to the bottom.
Can I see what kind of light you got in there?
It's just a regular
Normal LED. So you got it spaced up so that that fits just perfectly right underneath the front of there, huh?
Well, I had to help you
No,
out a little bit.
perfectly-ish.
It helped out a little bit. And I unplugged that, unplugged the air. Now I've got this sticking down the bottom of it, and I can lean this over here. And I put my brine shrimp.
So you got a siphon ready to go.
My
By
brine
disconnecting
shrimp
your
collection.
bubbler there.
Right here. And it takes about 30 minutes for that to settle. And I start draining it out then. Drain out the shrimp. And collect the shrimp in here. And collect the water in there, unless it's my third try. because then I'm going to just put plain water in here.
Yeah.
And I'll put it over here, and the plain water goes in here, and the brine shrimp go in there. And now fresh water and fresh salt goes into here.
All right, so Charles, you're going to show us how to clean the water for black worms, because I always end up killing mine.
Well, let's give it a try. First off, we got to get the water as cold as we can get it.
So
That's really close to the freezing temperature.
water needs to be cold. So
Okay,
what's your secret?
This came out of the freezer. I had it laying on the freezer like this. So it freezes solid. It freezes solid, but it's solid below, and I can get water into here.
All right.
I've got this chamber I can fill with water. And I like funnels. This is tap water. It's about 75 degrees.
Tap water about 75.
It's way
Too warm for the black
warm
worms.
for black worms.
So I might be giving them temperature shock then, huh?
Oh yeah, if you're doing anything with them at all. All right, so I'll set that there, and
You just let that water thaw out.
we'll let it thaw out a little bit. I'm gonna give it a little mix, just to be sure I get the water cold. And I'm gonna get a tub of black worms out of the refrigerator. And one thing I want to do, I don't want to lay it on a warm surface. If I can do anything with it, I'm going to put it on an insulated surface. So take a towel and fold it up, make a cushion,
So you're
somewhat
using-
insulated.
You're using that towel to keep the heat from going up into the black worm water?
Right. I don't want the heat from here getting into the black worms.
Okay.
You're not back for the top.
The black worms right out of the fridge.
Right.
See, they're all alive and healthy, so he clearly knows what he's doing. Feeding the kids. Yeah, so my blackworm water, when I've done it and I start killing them, it starts, that water right there gets real cloudy and kind of pinkish. And I think that's the death spiral that I end up putting them in every time, because apparently I am changing them with too warm of water. Just that slight temperature shock is enough to kill them. Let's see, the thermometer's plummeting down. The tap water came in around 74, right?
Right.
Or 76 it was.
This should be in the 40s.
So these are coming in around 46 degrees, 47 degrees, right in there.
It'll go down about 44. That's what the temperature inside the refrigerator is.
All right.
Set it at 44. And the temperature in here is close to 32.
Now the cold shock won't bother them none, huh?
No.
But the heat shock does.
Oh yeah.
Making sure you don't lose too many black worms.
Well, I'll make sure I don't lose any. They're going into a container. I put the wash water into a container that I can suck the black worms out of.
Yep. You never have too many turkey basters.
This one has been around since
How many Thanksgiving dinners have you done with that one?
the 70s. Oh, it's missed Thanksgiving dinners. Thank you.
Oops.
A couple of things I could do, and I would usually do, this one's stayed pretty clean, is to put the worms into a clean shoebox. But this one has not been clouding up too bad, so it's been relatively clean.
They like that. Look at them all dancing around.
This way, I'll suck some of them out, and I'll give them some of the gardener eye.
Oh, those worms don't last a second, huh? When it got real hot, my fish stopped spawning. And now that it's kind of starting to cool off, I've noticed them picking up some spawning behavior. So we got a little baby duplicaris in there. A couple of young ones in there. All right, so black worms are going back. Some new, nice cold water for them. So Charles, can you tell me about this this tub down here? What you got going in it?
That's a culture of Daphnia.
So what's this container? Just looks like looks kind of like a trash can.
Yes, we found it on sale at Walmart.
So
It
it's
was
just
to be used to hold Christmas tree or Christmas package wrapping.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, right. Christmas wrapping.
Christmas wrapping
paper.
display container.
And you put the tubes of Christmas wrapping paper in there and seal it up for next year.
That makes a lot of sense.
So yeah, it turned out to be a real nice container for something like that.
Yeah, it's a small footprint, which is nice when you're trying to grow something that you're just using to feed your fish. The Daphnia are, so they kind of look like big brine shrimp. There's one right there. You
They're not long,
can
they're
kind
round.
of see. Right there's a good one in focus.
Let me get some out for you.
All right, let's have them scoop a few out.
And another
Hanger on.
worm in there. Can you find any in there? You get some.
So do you use this to kind of condition fish to spawn, or what's? Do you have a purpose for feeding the Daphnia, or is it just more of just a kind of a tasty treat for them?
The fact that they live in the water and they will live there until they're eaten.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest advantages of using the Daphnia.
So it might be a nice food to kind of put in the tank if you're going out of town for a few days.
Right. Of course, most of the fish will eat it anyway.
Yep. They don't last long.
They don't last long. Sure.
Now, what'd you just
It's
feed in here?
warm
Which ones
after.
are these?
That's a gardener eye and a dairy.
These are achilles fish. Gardnerite, and the
In
location
Indiri.
point was in Indiri. So achilles fish, they have an interesting thing where in their scientific names, it almost like always is the collection point of where the killifish were collected from. And so it's important that if you get killifish, you need to know where the collection point was from so that you can keep the different species of gardneri separate from each other. So you don't end up messing up the different gardneri lines by interbreeding on accident. These guys are just so cool looking. This might be probably my favorite fish I've seen so far in here. Just that stunning neon blue. They really kind of look like a saltwater with how much color they have on them. I wish you guys could pick up on the camera. I wish the camera would pick up that striking blue stripe a bit better. There you go. And here's some more Australs.
Yeah.
I think they're showing up better without the light. You can really see that orange color to them. I mean, until I saw those killifish over there, the Australs were one of my favorites. But that is, I keep forgetting the names of them with the orange and the dark blue on them. I won't stop talking about.
Zophidias?
Yeah, the Zophias.
Those are rivulous.
Rivulous. Yeah.
Well, they're not rivulous anymore, but I got them as rivulous, and I know them as rivulous. I couldn't tell you.
But they got reclassified.
Yeah, the general, most all the South Americans have been.
They've reclassified the South American
Jumbos.
gillies.
There are several classifications for them.
These are gorgeous. So, Charles, how often do you pull eggs from these tanks?
Oh, I don't. I've put,
You use colony breed
for the
them?
most part, yeah, they're all colony bred. Oh, you can see a good, this is a big, nice picture here.
Look at all that. We accidentally just kicked up all the brine shrimp eggshells. But I mean, you can see these are just an intense orange.
These gardneri in here are MASI. There's as much on the inside as there is on the outside. I didn't plan on
Here's a good one right there.
They are from a different location.
But these are
MASI.
gardneri.
Yeah, these are also gardneri.
So you see the similarities. What do you know the differences by heart?
Well, most of this is polka dots and the striations on the dorsal.
So here's another one of my favorites, Charles. Do you know the scientific name of these?
That one's Nonostomus mortontheri.
One more time.
Nonostomus mortontheri.
I'm not going to try and repeat that. But their common name is the coral red pencilfish, right?
Right.
Now, I love these fish. You see the males here have got this big, beautiful red to them, and kind of runs through a gradient from their tail up to their nose. And then the females here are a bit more plain. They don't have that red in their tail. So it's a really easy to sex fish, which is it's really nice when you're trying to breed fish when it's easy to tell the females from the males.
Back in 2008, we brought 2 pair home from the wet spot in Oregon.
Oh, you went up and visited there?
Yes.
That is on my that's on my bucket list, is to make it up to the wet spot and to make it up to the aquarium co-op.
The wet spot had these fish in their tanks, and then they said, well, we think we can sex them for you. And they did. We brought 2 pair home at $20 a fish. Oof. On the airplane. Oof. Back in 2008.
So this is the male here, kind of with this yellow gradient pattern. And they've kind of got the yellow tips with a black, kind of a black dorsal with yellow tips on it. Right there you can see their fins pretty well. What's the name of this one here?
That's Splendorpore.
Mayuka Police Station? What does that mean?
That's where there's a police station here in
It just happens to have a permanent body of water that...
A stream, it runs through there. And it
No
was
kidding.
collected in 1989. And it was the collection point 15 on that trip.
You're kidding me. Do you know who collected them?
No, I don't know. Could look it up.
How fascinating. That's just outside of a police station. There's these beautiful fish. Females, again, these are actually some kind of cool looking females. They've got some red pattern in between their scales there that's not coming up super well in the camera. But they got that banding on them, and then that red pattern in between their scales. Charles, what would you say is your favorite fish to breed in here?
Actually, I think one of the ones that are most fun are the cherry barbs.
The cherry barbs. You want to show me those?
And they're back here in the corner.
What about these do you like so much?
And they're so easy. And auctions go well. They're very friendly. They're outgoing fish.
So they're nice to breed because they're easy to get rid of,
That too.
and they're easy to breed.
They're beautiful fish.
They really are. Males with that bright red. I notice you have quite the male to female ratio in here. Is that just how they bred out for you, or is that
Right.
by design?
No, I didn't change anything. If they get more males than females and more females than males, I typically raise or lower the temperature of the tank.
And you found that affects your
The
ratio?
temperature does more than anything else I can do.
So you just let them colony breed in here?
Right.
Now, do you have much success when it's this full? Or have you found that when
No,
you're
I
colony breeding, you need to pull some out?
need to have some kind of vaccine for this virus so we can have another auction.
Oh my gosh.
I got to get rid of some
I know.
plants and fish.
I know, you are super stocked. All you got Achilles coming out your ears. I mean, you got tons and tons of cherry barbs here, like this tank right here. What are these down here?
Peugeot.
Bugio. You've got tons and tons of, one more time?
Peugeot.
Peugeot. Tons and tons of these Peugeot. And these, you said these were from down south somewhere. What'd you say? Put you on the spot, now we're both blanking.
Right. Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico, that's the one.
They're one of the few fish that Puerto Rico boasts. And notice that the powder yellow in the caudal
Yeah.
and the border, the black border in the males.
And they look like a live bear, are they?
They are. Oh yeah. The Lima.
What's that?
Limnea Peugeot.
Okay, so they are related to Limias?
They are. They are Limnea Peugeot.
Okay.
It's a genus and species.
So Charles, I've noticed that you've also got quite a few Corydoras species in here going. These are the Corydoras nanus or nanus?
Yes.
Exactly. Exactly. So you kind of have an eclectic fish collection. You have a few different specialties, I would say, because you do have a specialties in that you do killifish, absolutely, quite a few of them, more than the average person. But you've got quite a few Corydoras and quite a few egg scatterers as well. Is it just because you happen to have friends who are killifish freaks and Corydoras freaks?
Jost has made the cories so available that
Yeah, it's hard not to, isn't
we
it?
give it a try. And I find it's not all that difficult to get some of these things to breed.
Just a matter of patience.
It's a matter of patience in a lot of cases. Sometimes these guys lay eggs about that size, clusters of eggs about that size. Actually, that's probably a scratch on that dirt on the outside of the tank.
Yep.
And it's difficult to put those in a tumbler to get them to hatch. So it's really better to let them hatch inside the tank.
Now, will they
These
predate their
guys-
own fry some?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Although this is third or fourth generation fish.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you had these for quite a while.
And these guys, they obviously make young. There's some very, very small fish down there on the bottom.
Yeah, we saw those earlier. Sure.
How many tanks did you count?
I stopped counting at 30 something, but real quick, this is a spectacular tank with a ton of scarlet batis in it. You really do need an auction, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. There's got to be 30 fish in there.
This is Denario.
Now, most people only see the males of this species because the wholesalers don't really sell the females to stores. But the females, you can see here, are kind of like similar to killifish in that they're kind of just plain brown. All right, so Charles, you're going to walk us through how to keep and feed grindal worms here.
Yes, mainly culture methods for producing grindal worms. And if you look at the plastic bag that's in here, you can see grindal worms have emerged out of the box.
That's what these little white worms are here, yeah?
Right. Mainly because I've overfed it or I haven't given it enough air. So yesterday afternoon, I pushed open some of the soil inside.
What sort of soil do you use?
Actually, it's magic worm bedding, but a good grade of peat moss will work just fine. Peat like this will work just fine.
Okay.
It's a little bit difficult to get it to wet, and when all the rest of it's too wet, then it's good to absorb some of the water out of it. And also, you've got to change the culture media once after a while. You can't leave it forever.
Kind of depletes
It's like-
nutrients.
Yeah, it's like the water. It's not just the nutrient, but it leaves behind so much of the worm shit and all the rest of the stuff that goes with it, the excrement and so on.
So
You've
you
to
got a layer of dirt here and or peat moss.
It's mostly peat moss.
All right, and what's the
Like
next step?
Well, the next step is take some very, very hot water, and you can either spray it on or pour it on, but it works best with hot water. And
Like
you
near
wanna put-
boiling?
Near boiling, because you're trying to wet the peat moss.
And the
That's
peat
one.
moss gets wet with hot water easier than with cold?
Right. So I poured a
You
little
can
bit of
see it's
water
kind
on
of
here.
Floating.
Right. And in about 36, 48 hours, everything in here will be wet and absorb the water.
Takes quite a while to.
So it doesn't happen
Absorb.
overnight. And the hotter the water is, the faster it'll happen. And you can't keep it that wet for that long, that
Oh, yeah,
hot
just
too long.
Really doesn't want to get wet.
So after it does absorb all the water in there, you want to be sure that it's at least this wet.
One more time. When you press down on the soil, some water comes out.
Right. Press down hard. Now, one of the things I need to be able to do is to replace. So, you need to have a shoebox. That's a great thing to have. You need to have a plastic bag that's big enough to put the box in.
All right.
So when you put the culture away for the day, you can close it up well enough that the bugs, gnats, especially during the summertime, can't get in.
All right.
You let a few gnats in here, one female gnat will wipe out the entire culture. She'll lay a few hundred eggs here, a few hundred eggs there, and
What is it about the gnat eggs that wipe out the culture?
maggots.
Oh, yeah.
And the maggots just crawl
They just
all over
eat.
everything. They start stinking. They eat the stuff that you feed them. So you need to have some peat moss. You need to have a shoebox like this, something similar. So I'm replacing some of the medium with fresh peat. With fresh peat. And I'll gradually move on. We'll get some on this side as well. Kind of
So you
move all
kind
the
of-
worms together.
You kind of replace like a slice at a time of
Right.
media.
We'll replace a little bit at a time.
So he's got this is new, and then next we'll do this, and then next we'll do that third.
So let's see. These have any. And there are coffee bean raspberries in here.
Coffee bean raspberries.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cool one. Have you gotten those to breed for you?
Oh yeah, thank you.
Now this house plant that you've got kind of growing all over your fish room,
I have no idea what to call it.
just an unnamed house plant that grows
purple.
vine-like.
Fuzzy purple.
It's not pothos. This is not pothos. Is
No,
it?
that's not the same stuff. This is just an ivy that happened to pick up somewhere,
Just grows crazy, huh?
and it likes it in here. So
Yeah, I mean it's growing down your
one of the
walls.
fishes that. Let's see if I can get the line over here where you can see it.
There's this purple fuzzy plant. Some more of that ivy. What were you saying? Oh, the pygmy quarries in here?
Yes, pygmy quarries in here.
I like them.
School.
Banana worms. Grindal worms. Bananas for the grindal worms. Charles, how long have you had this fish room running? How old is this fish room?
This one's only about 7 years old.
About a 7-year-old fish room. I notice you've got the whole thing insulated with this foam board.
Right. And above that is a plastic liner,
Keep the humidity inside.
so everything is fixed so it can stay inside. What's the pencil fish?
Yeah, I like these.
When we first moved in here in '78, it was shortly after that, I built the fish room. It ended right here.
There was a wall right here.
Yeah, there's a wall right there.
Okay.
And
So it's like a fish closet.
yeah, pretty much. Be able to crawl up the sides of this thing.
So what do you have in here again?
Those are flower weevils.
Flower weevils. So you just
They're a special breed.
keep them in a little.
They can't get out.
Can't climb up out of this. Well, that's nice. How
And
fast do they reproduce for you?
They're not fast. They're not things that you would expect to have available on a regular.
Just kind of notice when there's getting to be a lot of them and scoop them out.
Right. Sift them out.
Just feed them just like that, huh? Those little maggots in there
See
too?
some maggots, you're right.
So you feed the weevils and the maggots?
Right. How about some food?
I mean, by the time you get the light on them, they're all gone.
Right.
I like those maggots quite a bit. So, Charles, will you tell me a little bit about these fruit flies over here?
Sure. Again, this is a top water food for the fish.
So this goes in the tanks of fish that are able to eat off the top of the
Right.
water.
And the aquarists will normally train their fish to eat these things.
Now, these fruit flies do fly. But
These
not the
don't.
wingless ones, are they?
These don't. These fruit flies don't fly.
Those are wingless flies.
No, they're vestigial wing.
Okay. So you're feeding out the flies and the maggots, or just the maggots?
Just flies.
Just the flies. Okay. So you just
Just
harvest
flies.
them by.
Let's go over here to a killie tank. That's accustomed to eating them. And the big deal is they know they're there.
So you just open the lid. and
Open
pour
the
that
lid.
in.
I'm careful to shake them down and keep them down.
Make sure they get in there.
And make sure the lid's closed again when I get it back together.
So are these your more rascally food to feed then?
The fish have got to be trained to eat them. Once they're trained that they're there, then they do a pretty good job of cleaning them up.
They're hitting those hard.
Formula for making the medium for it.
Oh, for the fruit
You
flies?
can buy the medium. Put this back over there. You can buy the medium online, or you can make it yourself.
I'm assuming it's cheaper to make it yourself.
Well, yes and no. Because the objective is to get it to make flies. And they seem to like yeast a whole lot. So it's important to have live yeast growing inside the culture. It's important for the fruit flies to be attracted to it, and it's important for the maggots to enjoy it and it turn into good healthy flies. This one,
So how often do you change out that medium?
was made 714.
714. That was about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, this was 6.3 and everything is dead. These were fresh started, and you notice the yeast has lifted some of the media up on the inside, but the flies will like it.
So then what do? Just tap a few flies into a new container and...
Well, first of all, you need to have approximately equal amounts of water and media. This is a cup of powdered sugar, 4 tablespoons, actually I didn't put that much in it, of methylparaben, 8 cups of potato flakes, and they say put a cup and a half or a cup of brewer's yeast in it, and it makes about 30 1/3 cup cultures. Now, in my experience, I found that by the time I get around to using up all of the media, the yeast is dead.
Sure.
So I prefer to add the yeast whenever I make up the culture.
Just kind of sprinkle in a little bit of yeast.
So this is potato flakes and powdered sugar and a little bit of methylparaben.
All right.
The methylparaben is to keep the fungus from growing in it. And then they sell these things. Combination of lid and container, and there's holes in the lids.
Yeah.
These are sold online. That's where these came from.
And that's worth the money spending on it so you don't have fruit flies crawling out?
Well, I use a leather punch, and I punch these holes in it when I first got started in it. And then I put a piece of paper towel on there, and I stuck it down in a couple of places with some kind of Borden's glue, just so it sticks well enough. And it, because the paper is outside of the rim of the container that goes on there, it traps it in there too, so that the my filter is in there securely, and then the flies can't get out of it.
Yeah.
In here, again, I use one of these 4-ounce containers, and it's best to start. I will step out of the way over here. It's best to start with a dry container, so I got one dry container and one wet one. I'll take a wet container and some hot water. A little bit of hot water. You pour that in here. Now I need some yeast. Now, my yeast is in the refrigerator with the black worms. Black worms. That's why I have left over. It's time for more black worms. So I've got a wee bit of warm water in there. And I need to have a wee bit of yeast. And I know this is active yeast. Try to keep the moisture out of it. It goes back in the refrigerator. And I'll fill this back up with the wet one. And water. And make sure the yeast gets warmed up. It is warm, see the condensate above it?
Yeah.
So it's a good place to get started.
Ready. So you can get your potato flakes.
So yeah, my sugar and potato flakes and methylparaben.
So you got that all pre-mixed in here?
This is pre-mixed. Yeah, I've made it in plastic bags, and then I found this and I mixed it in there, and I said, oh geez, this is better because now I've got a structured container I can shake up and I can reach down in it with a glove on.
Sure.
Okay, then this goes into...
So is it a 1-to-1 of that mixture in the water?
It's close. I got too much in there.
You just know by doing this so long how to eyeball it then.
Yeah, I try to get it 1-to-1. Something like 1-to-1. But I gotta make sure that the yeast is alive. That's one of the very important parts of it.
No yeast, no feast.
And then I need something for the flies to crawl up on. Wood seltzer is a good thing to use. Wax paper is a good thing to use. And I've also found that parchment paper is a good thing to use.
So it's any sort of water-resistant paper then?
Something that's water resistant, something for them to crawl up on. Now, wood and seltzer is that, I'm not sure you can still get it in hardware stores, but it's one of the things that's often sold with bug cultures.
Now, what's the importance of them having something to crawl on? They just don't like being down on the food all the time?
No.
What does that do if they are down on the food all the time? Just kind of coats their food
Yeah,
with,
well,
with
they're getting
excrement?
their feed wet all the time. So I'm going to stick this down into the culture just a little bit, give them some place to crawl out of. And I'm going to put this lid on here, and it's going to set for a day. So that all of the water is going to be absorbed into the potato flakes.
Yeah.
And then I'll introduce some flies.
So give those potato flakes the time to absorb some of the moisture, and
But
then
it's going to stabilize.
after about 24 hours, tap
And
some flies in there?
The yeast will also bubble this up some,
Yeah.
and I'll shake it down. So that will become a next culture. And I'll have a date on it. We're into August already, right?
Are we? Oh my gosh.
This is 8/1.
Do you remember February 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
That's what it feels like, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to somebody and they were saying, yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs just won the Super Bowl 3 years ago. It's like, it does feel like that.
So you can use almost anything. Wax paper, parchment
But it's
paper.
got to be water resistant.
It needs to be something that won't absorb the water and won't melt.
Yeah.
And if you
So, because a paper towel would take that moisture and just kind of crumple down to the bottom.
yeah, they won't have anything to crawl on at all. So the flies need to have some way to get out of the
Out of the food.
right. And let's see, hydril, melanogaster. I think these are hydril. This particular species of fruit flies are hydril. They're not wingless, but they're vestigial wing. There's also melanogaster.
Melanogasters, are those
Bigger.
the wingless ones?
No, well, they may be, but they're bigger.
They're bigger? Okay.
They're twice the size of these things.
Oh, wow.
And they're
Okay.
twice the speed. You open the thing up and you better get ready to close it up.
So you prefer these then?
It's easier for someone to do these than it is for the bigger flies.
Bait shop worms?
These are from Walmart.
The ultimate bait shop.
Walmart. Looks like I've fed most of these out of here. Blackworms this weekend, so I haven't ventured out to get them.
So how do you chop them up? Ah, you got worm scissors.
Yeah, I got worm scissors. Now I need a tank to eat them.
You can just chop them right over the tank, huh?
That's an easy way to do it. One easy way to do it. They don't get everything else messed up. If you give them a little squeeze,
I'm sure someone at home is
They
getting
get a little-
squeamish about this.
you give them a little squeeze, they get a little stiff. So you can get a smaller chunk. And it's down to what it is.
Just like that.
There's some 1/8 sections of redwood rivers in here.